The Stack. People, Business, Technology. With Dan Tomaszewski of Everything MSP.
Hello, everybody. Dan Tomaszewski here. Welcome to another episode of The Stack, where we focus on people, business, and technology. Today, we're discussing how hackers are evolving, targeting MSPs, abusing trusted tools, and bypassing security defenses faster than ever before. Now, we're going to cover a lot today, actually, but our big takeaways are. Number one, we're going to focus on the biggest risks for MSPs that they must prepare for. Secondly, we'll talk about how cyber criminals are evolving tradecraft. And last but not least, we're going to get into some actionable defenses for MSPs. And joining us today, we have Ethan Tancredi, who is with Huntress, a cybersecurity company that provides threat detection. I can't speak today. Incident response, managed security solutions for MSPs, combining automated threat hunting with expert human analysis to combat advanced cybersecurity threats. And with that being said, let's go ahead and bring in Mr. Ethan Tancredi. How are you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing great, Dan. Thanks for having me here. We could do theft detection too, I guess. But
yes,
we
exactly.
a different business.
Exactly.
But, doing really well and excited to kind of talk about some of the findings from Huntress about our that we found doing a retrospective on 2024.
Yeah, absolutely. And first off, it's great to see you again. I love our conversations. I love your passion for not only cybersecurity, but also for what you do at Huntress. So on behalf of the MSP channel, thank you, because that means the world to us out there in the weeds. So thank you.
Well, no, I mean, it was one of the things that led me to Huntress when I left the MSP side of the business was that passion of educating the community. Like, yes, of course, we want you to buy Huntress tools, of course, but the bigger mission is really educating and sharing knowledge. So, I love that Huntress lets me come out and speak with people like you so that people can take away nuggets that they can implement without having to buy Huntress. Like, if we can raise that, cybersecurity, Kyle, our CEO, talks about the cybersecurity poverty line, and we just need to kind of keep bringing that line, making those tools not as expensive, making it so that people aren't underneath that poverty line of cybersecurity in ways.
Right.
That's the key part.
Absolutely. And now, like kind of jumping in and digging into the report, we're going to discuss the Huntress 2025 cyber threat report. In reviewing this report, which is a very extensive report, I don't think you guys left anything out. I mean, it's amazing.
It's 85-page PDF is all I'm saying.
Yeah, exactly. And we know that in 2024, cyber threats escalated as attackers deployed more of those enterprise level tactics against businesses of all sizes, and it didn't really matter what it was. They basically blurred the lines as far as who they were targeting. Ransomware groups evolved into agile networks. You got the abuse of remote access tools being surged. And so in our episode today, I want to explore as much as we can. I want to talk about some of those key threats, the strategies that MSPs and businesses need to stay ahead of. But before we jump in, as I mentioned, this isn't a very extensive report. It must have been very fascinating to see this come together and just the whole compilation of everything that was involved in it.
Oh yeah, it's been really fascinating to be working with the team. I mean, I can't take personal credit for all of this work. We have our cyber threat and intel team, in particular, Greg Linares on our team does a fabulous job of compiling this, but he's working with our SOC analysts looking at our metrics behind the scenes and our data behind the scenes, compiling this and taking what we see day in, day out and saying, all right, let's take a step back, and also then use, from that adversary threat hunting that we do, which we, talk to others in the security channels and see trends not only in Huntress's data, but outside of it. And so it is fascinating to be able to have that view. I mean, that's part of the benefit of, protecting 3.5 million endpoints and over 1 million identities in Microsoft environments, that it does give us this visibility, which is great.
Yeah, absolutely. And so let's get started. Taking a look at the big picture. I guess two questions here. What would you say are the biggest takeaways from the Huntress 2025 cyber threat report? And secondly, ultimately, what should MSPs be most concerned about?
Okay. Well, I think some big things that maybe aren't the huge headlines, but are some key things to really pay attention to. Probably the first one is that phishing is going high tech. And what do
Okay.
I mean by that is, you and I are of an age. We remember the Nigerian prince spam,
Right.
messages, and you could look for poor grammar. You could look for obvious fake emails, right? Like those were the norms. Threat
Yeah.
actors have gotten much more sophisticated on that. So one thing we noticed, over 24% are now image-based phishing attacks. And so,
Mm,
and the reason why, they're trying to bypass those spam filters. We saw
right.
one image-based phishing attack where it actually recombined the image. So it like sent it in multiple parts, but it had HTML in the email. So it recombined the image. It basically split it apart, get it through the spam filters, and then recombined it. So that's really intriguing. Also, that threat actors have learned, kind of like the living off the land binaries we hear about on endpoints, of using living off the land sites to host their malicious documents and things. So DocuSign, maybe their SharePoint sites where
Mm,
they are, somebody taught you, look at the URL. Does that look correct on where you're going? And you're like, it's to a DocuSign site. That's legit.
right.
Or that's a SharePoint site. Of course, that's legit.
Yeah.
Well, they are using that brand impersonation to, once again, social engineer you and get you to click on those links and interact with them. So I think that, and there's suppositions what's driving that. I think it's offense gets better, defense has to, it's that offense defense
Yeah.
continual battle between, white hat, black hat, whatever you want to call it. But it's also, we can't just pretend that, large language models, chat GPT, etc., aren't helping the threat actors get better and think differently on it.
Well, I just heard a story just yesterday where a client had someone within the organization had signed up for Otter to be able to use it as a AI and doing those transcriptions. Somehow, though, however, I don't know the details as far as how this occurred, but it basically sent out a message to everybody in Teams saying to sign up for Otter. This is a great tool. And all of a sudden, everybody started signing up for it. And nobody knew, like,
Yep.
hey, is this legit? And it came from just an employee from the company, not from anybody in the leadership. And so all of a sudden, all these people are signing up for Otter. Now, thankfully, it was okay, it was legit. But what if it wasn't?
Right.
You know?
Exactly. And that's that power of, and the threat actors understand that, of trying to make messages appear as they are from individuals. I mean, uh, going a little bit down side tunnel, but like, phishing where they are spoofing the email addresses. We've had several support tickets at Huntress where partners are like, hey, somebody got compromised and Huntress detected in our ITDR product, what's going on. And we start to look at the actual email and no, actually, they're just very sophisticated spoofs of it, right? And the threat actor is trying to make that social network, if you will, just like the otter, of like, use this, person you trust to get you to do something bad. And the other thing, probably the other big change around it that we were doing similar kind of venue is the remote access tool abuse is just exploding. And that is definitely, and we'll talk about this more, I'm sure, MSPs being a target, right? So an MSP getting their own tools compromised, but and we can look back, 2024, there was the Screen Connect vulnerability, but also threat actors are figuring out, whether they're getting free trials of tools, whether they are, just breaking licenses and running their own rogue tools of these. They know how powerful that remote access tool is. So if they can get that onto an endpoint, whether that's land and install it so it doesn't get detected by anybody, or trick an end user into installing their tool, right? Now they have quote unquote God powers on those machines because MSP side, I used my remote access tool. It was great. I could run a system and do everything I needed on that endpoint, without interrupting the user. And
I mean, that whole shadow IT. I mean, and again, when we talk about human behavior, that is such a critical thing of, hey, yes, we understand that end users aren't trying to do something, to harm the organization, but they're just trying to do something to, better their workflow, make their lives easier, and to do a better job. I mean, their heart's in the right place, but the decisions that they make could have such severe ramifications for the organization.
No, exactly. And so this is where that I think last time I was on, you and I talked about building that cybersecurity culture, right? This is where MSPs, you need to be definitely educating your own team and building that culture, but working with your clients and having those conversations that, yes, Becky, the secretary, or Bob, the secretary, have their best intentions, but can they slow down? Can they take a pause? Does this seem legit? Does this seem right? Asking those questions is so critical because we are, to your point, we're going so fast. We're trying to be more efficient. Speed, though, has problems.
Yeah, and before we started our call, we were talking a little bit about this, of being too quick to click, and and sometimes we do things that might be benign and aren't going to have any negative issues. However, that one click could be the most damning thing for that organization. And the power of the vehicle in front of them, that PC, that laptop, that device, can be dangerous, very dangerous.
No, definitely. And I mean, you asked, what's maybe some action items from this report or key things for the MSPs to take away from this. I think one of the key things is really to read this report and understand that threat actors don't have a one size fits all approach, right? Those cyber criminals, they're trying to make money. They're going to be nimble and innovative, and they're going to pivot in the quote unquote right way for the industry they are attacking. So if you like, one of the things you should understand is what industries are being attacked the most, so that if you are servicing one of those, you realize, oh, we're probably going to have to up our game. So healthcare and education, the two of them were like over a third of the attacks were hitting those two organizations that we saw. So if you have clients in those two industries, like definitely you need to be trying to protect them. Healthcare, obviously, a lot of PHI information. There's a wealth of data that could be grabbed from that aspect of it. Education, unfortunately, threat actors know lack of budgets. And also, once again, a lot of data is in your education system that you might not
Right.
realize.
Yeah.
And so, all right, how do you, as an MSP, you're doing that? How do you provide the right layers of security and protect those industries the right way? We saw another one as an example, government, of understanding kind of what the threat actors are doing. Government, we noticed that actually like over 20% of the incidents that were hitting government entities were centered around info stealers. So that should make you think and go, oh, hold on, I'm probably going to need to make sure that we're
Yeah.
using password managers, we're using, we're not reusing passwords and things like that in my government clients. Now, because the threat actors are thinking, great, if I can get those credentials a government user has, right? Talk just like the MSP is a huge target, but government, right? Talk about great,
Yeah.
some great gold you could uncover
Right.
there.
Right.
Yeah, so like though, I think that's one of those key things you need to understand is understand your industry so that you can tailor solutions to protect those industries.
Absolutely. And, and one of the things that I like to, mention to MSPs is to stay in tune with, the various industry trade organizations, go to those trade organizations, conferences, subscribe to their newsletters, just hear what they're saying, hear what they're talking about. Um, you know, I think sometimes we feel like, we know all the answers, but we can always look to other resources. And, specifically, maybe it's a financial services industry. And, either we might hear about, like if you only have a few clients that might be financial planners, um, that trade association is going to have thousands and thousands of financial planners, and we're going to get more information from that could be extremely advantageous. So
No, you're totally right. Like just to echo that, like that, it is so important to. We talk about Huntress community, right? It is join those
yeah.
communities, learn from each other. Obviously, why people are listening to you at Everything MSP, right? It's a community. You're learning from it. If you're not engaging with different groups and you're kind of by yourself out in the wilderness, you're definitely handicapping yourself. You need to be
Right.
engaging in those groups for learning, seeing the trends, seeing what's coming down. You're totally right.
Yeah. And, taking a look at ransomware, obviously it's evolving. In the cyber threat report, it points out some very alarming shifts.
Yeah.
So my question for you is what's changed in the past year and how are attackers adapting?
Yeah. So two key things are we're now seeing more and more. One is definitely the threat actors are moving to data exfiltration instead of just ransomware. So, not saying that they aren't going to ransom you, but they are
Sure.
also looking at, can we get data out? Because now they can do a double extortion, right? Hey, we ransomed you. Oh, but we also have your data. And if you don't want us to release us, pay us some money. Because as you and I talked about last time, these are business people in quotes.
Right.
As
Yeah.
much as we don't want to think of them, they're there trying to make a earning, trying to make a
Right.
living. This is what they are doing. So like data exfiltration becomes great for reselling it, whether that's reselling it to you and your business so that you don't get it exposed, or reselling it because there are industrial secrets, right? Are there, if you're in
Mhm.
manufacturing, right? Do you have design work? Do you have proprietary information maybe? Is there just a list of customers, right? There's all sorts of people don't think about how valuable their data is, but just think about the metadata that we get on social media, et cetera, and how, we're targeted for ads, et cetera. Like, threat actors understand that. So data exfiltration is now happening. So be thinking about what ways you can alert on if you're starting to see mass data going out. What are you blocking in your firewalls? Are you blocking people from being able to send large amounts of data out? Are you blocking, maybe saying, hey, yeah, we don't let you send data to MegaSync or one of these large publicly, we don't, like, those are things an MSP could put in place of, like, hey, we're going to make it hard. The second thing is that the time to ransom has sped up drastically. Like, we are now seeing that sometimes happen in as little as 4 hours from the time that they have landed to the time that they start their ransomware. Now, that's not, quote unquote, the norm that they are encrypting in 4 hours, but that time to action is getting much faster. And the advice here is that EDR, and yes, I am from an EDR company, but like, you need that endpoint detection and response that's 24/7, because you can't wait until morning for somebody to look at those alerts that are coming on it. And I argue, and yes, I'm with Huntress, so this makes sense. I'm arguing for it, but you need somebody, a SOC team who is trained and can look at that, because EDR can generate a lot of false positives. And so, you need to be able to say, yes, that who am I that's being run? Okay, that's normal. That's a normal query from maybe is being run out of our RMM to, oh no, that's a threat actor who is doing some first stages of enumeration. And that's where having a SOC who's looking at things 24/7 becomes critical, because it can interrupt that, you can get to it sooner. And like, the conversation MSPs need to be having with their clients is that, yes, threat actors are starting to move faster. So we can't use our old technologies and our old ways of being, because they're adapting. They're realizing, oh yeah, this tactic could trigger an alert in the EDR. So let's move faster instead of it. I mean, one of the other things that came out in our report this year was that we've actually seen a shift now to what we're calling the hands-on keyboard time. So, threat actors have their automated scripts that they'll run, or kind of their processes collecting data, but they have now started to try and time their hands-on keyboard roughly around Eastern Standard Time business hours. And our thought behind that is that they're trying to blend in so that, EDR, if it trips, oh, maybe that was Dan doing something on the machine, right? That's expected behavior. And so they are trying to blend in so that you're not, that their actions will blend in. So that's why you need that SOC who can take that EDR telemetry and go, no, actually, this is malicious behavior, and we're looking at it all the time.
So the past patterns are not what we're seeing today and tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, that's the other key. I talk about this over and over. Like, MSPs need to be talking to their clients that security is a journey. If you are selling your CPA firm here's the security solution today, and this will take care of your needs, you aren't setting that conversation up right, because they're going to go, when you come back in 12 months, because the threat actors have adapted, they're going to be like, hold on, you sold me this widget a year ago. Are you telling me that widget wasn't any good? And so you need to be like, it's a continual process, right? We're never going to be at the end where we're like, whew, wipe our hands, we're all done with this security thing.
Right. And I think too, we need to use stories and analogies that maybe will resonate with them. So let's take a look at law. Let's take a look at financial planners or CPA firms. Tax laws change constantly. In the legal industry, I mean, laws change constantly. So if we have those conversations that can connect with them, strike that chord related to what they're going through, but then tie it into security where everything is constantly evolving and changing, then, that might just connect the dots a little more for them.
No, definitely. And so, like, I will tell, and I am sure that, the human brain is wired for story, right? That is how we
Yeah.
learn as a species. We are so tied into that. One of the things I would actually advocate everybody who's listening to this do is follow Huntress on LinkedIn as a company. We are
Yeah.
dropping stories of us catching threat actors. Now, yes, it's about us, but they are
Right.
actually stories talking about how threat actors get into different businesses, different environments, that from that standpoint, they are universal. And they are
Yeah.
things that you could take down and say, hey, even if you didn't sell Huntress, hey, these are the ways that threat actors are trying to get in. We have stories about, whether it's a VPN compromise, it's somebody falling for phishing, and they're great little vignettes that can drive that conversation about, here are ways threat actors are innovating, and
Yeah.
ways that you know if you didn't use Hunters, great, but I am sure you can design your security tools to say, and this is the way we would deal with it or pick it up. Like, use stories to help drive your clients to understand, yes, it wasn't them, but somebody similar to them. And we talk about the different industries that were there. There was a cheese maker in Australia, I want to say, was one. There was a family transportation business, right? There was a moving company of some sort. So, like,
Yep.
you can I definitely, it's worthwhile if somebody to follow us and kind of, pick up those stories that help them drive that story home. Because you're totally right. Stories are what are going to get people to move.
And those are real life stories that, I think I mean, it's not hypothetical. I mean, we
Right.
often, try to sell hypothetical scenarios like, well, if this were to happen, yada, 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 right? And having those real life stories like that, you know, they just hit home way
Yep.
more when you're trying to sell your story.
No,
And
definitely.
yeah. So, as we're wrapping things up, a couple things that I wanted to cover. You guys have some new things, some upcoming things that we would like to talk about. I'd love to hear a little bit about your 2025 roadmap. Hot off the press, right?
Yep. Hot off the press. We now have those available out there. I think there's probably a URL. We probably can share it with you to get
Yeah.
out on it. But we are looking at things like for our ITDR, for our identity threat detection product, we've been protecting Microsoft. We are talking about, by the end of the year, we are shooting to be protecting Google workspaces. So
Mm.
people should definitely keep their eyes open for that. We just released a capability that is in early access for us called Rogue Apps on our ITDR, where that is OAuth applications that we are starting to detect in our product and alerting on for there. For EDR, that's our most robust product. The things that we're doing there, they're under the cover type of things. It's not like, ooh, splashing new features necessarily, but
Yeah.
cool new thing. We're starting now to do correlation of events. So, and we'd always done a little bit, but like, we now are doing what we call low signals, of combining them, where we were able to detect the precursors of ransomware, isolate a host before it got ransomed, because there were, like, we put together, and I'm going to get these wrong, but equivalent of, like, there was the VSS shadow copies being deleted, some key commands being run, right? There are like 3 or 4 things that all bundled together by themselves. Yeah, they're pretty innocuous, but
Sure.
oh, super. You put those together, those are almost always going to be a threat actor getting ready to take actions in there. We have been innovating around our tamper protection so that the Hunter's agent can't be removed. Um, security awareness training, we actually have introduced some gamification with leaderboards, and also the ability to integrate with Teams, so you can alert people through Teams that they have a new security awareness training.
Oh, nice.
So those are some key things on that roadmaps that we have going forward.
And then, in addition to that, wanted to touch on the callbacks from Huntress SOC on those critical incidents.
Oh yeah, thank you for reminding me. So something so our reports honestly are really good. So we have roughly a less than 1% false positive rate, and we try and make our incident reports we send over, critical incident reports, really clear so that you as the MSP can read them, understand root cause, get to the bottom of it, remediate it. Sometimes though, there's questions. Well,
Sure.
And what we have done is we have now on those critical incidents, both for EDR, ITDR, you can request a call back from our SOC team or our SOC support team. That team will call you back, be able to answer questions, give you any more information, liaison with our SOC team to do a deeper dive if necessary. And we don't have a ton of people taking us up on it, but like it is great when you have some additional questions, trying to communicate with chat. We have super chat support, but like sometimes you need a person to talk to and just get the
Right.
message across.
Yeah.
And that is available 24/7. So that is new, and we're very excited to be offering that ability that you can call in, ask for a call back on those critical incidents, and our SOC support team will reach out to you.
And then, lastly, could you give just a brief overview of SIM detections?
Yeah. So SIM, we launched it, and I think you and I maybe talked about this when I last was on. It was new for us. We were really just
Yeah.
ingesting logs, and
Yeah.
that's super. We continue to add more data sources, more things we're parsing data on for firewalls, Duo, password managers, Bitwarden was new. We just dropped in. But what we were working on building out were those detections so that our SOC could take actions and actually send incidents. So we now have detections in the platform that will start an investigation right off. One we're calling known malicious machine authentication. Surprisingly, threat actors are lazy. Maybe not that surprising. And we will see the same machine name, and our supposition is that they're probably like selling a pre-built machine with tooling to attack,
Okay.
and then that machine is sold around the dark web, but we will see that machine pop up in different incidents. And so now we track that internally, and now when one of those machines authenticates through the SIM, we can say, hey, we've seen this is a known bad threat actor machine. Kali is, pen testers use that all the time. Threat actors do too. That's one example. But so we have detections around there. We have things like brute force for exposed RDS servers to alert. Hey, you have an RDS server exposed. It's under a brute force attack. And then our SOC is also doing retrospective, meaning EDR alerts on something, they're going and pivoting over to the SIM, seeing if there's anything else suspicious going on, getting more information. Had an incident maybe a couple weeks ago where a partner had put their firewall of Fortinet into the SIM. So we had those sources as well. Definitely you want to put your VPN appliance into it, public service announcement, into any SIM solution. But threat actor compromised that. And through EDR, we detected lateral movement. We pivoted over to the SIM looking for that for initial access. Determined, yes, we could see the VPN client at the time. The account that was compromised, it was actually admin who came in through the VPN. Well, we also then through the SIM were able to see that the admin user had created a secondary SSL VPN user. And so we were able to report not only, that was, but the Dan at, client.ssl VPN was needed to be removed. So those are some of the cool detections and stuff we're doing with the SIM solution.
Awesome. That's some great stuff. And, for anybody that's not currently using Huntress, I'm gonna go ahead and throw in the banner. You can go out to huntress.com. Of course, also if you're on the everythingmsp.com website, you can search for Huntress. There's a great way there to be able to connect directly with Huntress and get some additional information. But before we go, you guys have a pretty cool program called the Neighborhood Watch Program. Can you
Yeah.
share some details about that?
Yeah. Well, one of the things is that talked about in our threat report, like MSPs are a target. We are, that one-to-many relationship that the threat actors want to get to. And so we believe of the importance of, that the cobbler should have shoes and should fix his own shoes, right?
Yeah,
And so, like, we say, you do a trial with us, but we will then give you the licenses at no cost. We call it our neighborhood watch program of and they're not for resale licenses, so that you can protect your infrastructure from
yeah,
the threat actors, because we believe that everybody needs to have EDR, ITDR, a good security awareness trained SIM solution. So, like, you can get all those things if you aren't a partner. Even if you are a partner, you should be saying, "Hey," if talking to your account manager, making sure you have your neighborhood watch licenses.
yeah.
We strongly believe to, as one of my friends from Texas says, eat your own tacos, right? And this would be a
Right,
way to
right.
eat your own tacos.
Yeah. And we have to, right? I mean, it's so critical. I mean, we must live the same experience that we're selling to our clients. And you can't sell what you don't live at the
Yep.
end of the day.
Yep.
So,
Exactly.
well, that's awesome. That's great. Great benefit. And Ethan, as always, I love our conversations, and we covered a lot, and really appreciate all of your time.
It's a pleasure being here with Dan. Look forward to talking to you again.
All right, thank you so much, Ethan, and thank you everybody for being here with us today. Until next time, we'll talk to you soon. Take care, everyone. Thank you for listening to The Stack.